Folks, welcome in to sportsbookreview.com. It's time to talk some NFL Divisional round action. This is our Thursday NFL show. I'm Donnie Seymour. He's Kyle Purviance, and we're going to be here for an hour breaking down the four games, a doubleheader on Saturday and also a doubleheader on Sunday. Kyle, I can't be more excited. This is my favorite week of the year in football, and we are getting close to game time.
Yeah, I'm super excited. And I got to tell you, I was a little tired today, kind of feeling just kind of a little meh. And then the magic appears on Donnie's Twitter page. If you are a fan of Sportsbook Review, you watch all of our shows, you know we have a superstar in Flash Watson. Once this show is over, instantly run over to Donnie's Twitter page and check out our boy in his prime. It put me in a whole new mindset. Of course, I'm excited for the divisional round. And, a little bit of injury news, some weather stuff changing. So it's going to be a lot of fun today.
No, we're going to have a good time going over it. And also, we always like those older highlights about 10 years ago and about, hey, next year when Kyle's doing some other things, we'll bring up some of these YouTube clips and have fun with him as well. But as we always like to bust balls and have some fun here on the show, we got a lot to get to over the next hour, but growing is what we are doing here at sportsbookreview.com. Why do you say that? 79,100 people have hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Turn those notification bells on. When we go live with content, you're going to want to have it delivered directly to your inbox so you can come in, say hello in the chat box, and have some fun. Thank you as well for all the thumbs up, the likes, all the good vibes that we get from you guys in the chat boxes. As we say it each and every week or every time we come on the show, we wouldn't do this if you guys didn't tune in, have some fun with us, and keep the lights on at sportsbookreview.com. So we do thank you guys for your participation. And there's a lot to get over, a lot to get to, and a lot to get over. But if you miss anything throughout the year, if you need any information, you want the write-ups, you want the picks, you want the videos, there's a link below where both myself and Kyle are talking right now, sbrpicks.com/NFL. Click that link, and all the information you need is designed to make you a better NFL handicapper. And we do have some interesting things to go over today. Before we get into the four games, now that we have some extra time, we could decompress a little bit. Let's get into the little nooks and crannies of what we're taking a look at. Line movements this week, and we're going to start game by game by game. If we take a look at that Rams-Green Bay game here, Kyle opens up. The mover is on the total, 46.5, now dropping down to 45.5. Not a lot of movement here on the line itself. We opened up around that 7, 6.5s across the board at the majority of outlets here. Buffalo and Baltimore, that over-under opened up at 49. We've seen an increase to 50 and 50.5, and also now majority of sportsbooks actually sitting at 49.5. The over-under in that one, we'll see where that gets because we are going to talk some weather conditions in just a little bit. If we look at the side in that game, Kyle, -3, now down to 2.5s across the board. But when we were talking on Tuesday on the opening line show, that was around 1.5. So a little bit of a buyback now coming back on the Bills. In the Sunday games, not a lot of movement in the Kansas City game. Opened up around 10, sitting at 10 across the board. But the big mover in that one, Kyle, the 54.5 total, now showing at 57s. And even if we take a look at Pinnacle Offshore at SBRodds.com, they're showing a 57.5 in the final game. We opened up at 3.5 as a favorite for New Orleans Offshore. Now we're seeing 3s across the board, and a nice line move here, Kyle, in a dome. 50s now to 52s. Looking at these line movements, any surprises to you from Tuesday to here on Thursday, Kyle?
Yeah, I think the movement up in the Kansas City Cleveland game is a bit surprising now as we're seeing sort of that weather situation start to round into form where we're seeing higher winds, colder temperatures. I mean, we've seen this Browns offense before, right? In these higher wind games. We saw it against the Raiders, who, look, the Chiefs don't have a great defense, but neither do the Raiders. And we saw it was a big time struggle for them to throw the football. So that was kind of a surprise for me, seeing that go up. Everything else sort of makes a lot of sense to me. The movement up in that Tampa-New Orleans game, you start to worry a little bit. You see some of the injuries on the offensive side of the ball. Taysom Hill's battling that knee issue. Will Latavius Murray be available? Ronald Jones. So, and, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, of course, customarily always on the injury report. But that one sort of surprises me a little bit, especially when you've seen how dominant New Orleans defense has been. The other ones makes a lot of sense to me. Buffalo going up, of course. It's funny how little things can change the outlook of a game. And I do think that, big ESPN article with Lamar Jackson saying, I don't really want to play in the snow, and sort of seeing hesitant about playing in the snow might have changed some people's minds to go the Buffalo side a little bit. And I always find that a little bit funny, but everything else seems pretty normal. But I am really surprised that Kansas City Cleveland total going up and not down when you look at the weather situation there in Kansas City.
Yeah, we're going to go over that game by game. I don't know if there's a lot of weather to really worry about in that one per se, but if we take a look, I think the moniker that we can use is, Kyle, the underdogs are getting a lot of respect this weekend, because when the Green Bay line opens up at 7, we don't know who's going to be quarterback, but this is a Green Bay team that's been mashing teams lately. They're built for this, and then you're going to look at Jared Goff, how healthy you're going to be at the wide receiver position, at the running back position for the Rams, which we'll go over that in just a few moments. But that line from 7 to 6.5, Buffalo opens up at that 3 range, immediately gets bent down below. And I would be surprised, Kyle, even by game time on Saturday, if that line is a -3 again. I don't think it touches that level. If anything, I think there might be a little bit of more of a comeback here from the 1.5 to the 2.5, back down to the 1.5 as we get closer to game time. Kansas City and Cleveland, what is everybody talking about all year long? Not covering the spread for Kansas City. Now you have a 10-point game. We'll see how that plays into it as well. But also in that Tampa Bay New Orleans game, it's interesting to me. You open up at the 3.5, and if you look at just the old circumstances, Drew Brees in a dome, prime time, what's not to love about going with the Saints? But obviously we know it's different extenuating circumstances here. But the same thing keeps popping into my head. Am I going to see something different the third time around in that game that's going to drive it, and why that line deserves to be 3.5 to 3 and not 3.5 to 4 at that point? That's something that we're certainly going to have to keep in mind. Now, when we take a look at, let's get into some of the weather conditions that we were talking about, because there's not anything like we saw a couple times in Cleveland, like back in October, November, torrential rainstorms, 40-mile-an-hour winds, and you just can't do anything, so the game ends up 10 to 6. That's not going to be the case. But take a look at Green Bay versus the Los Angeles Rams. If you're asking the Rams, like, oh, my goodness, we got to go to Green Bay, and then we told the Rams it'd be about 34, 35 degrees, winds around 10 miles an hour or less, they would take that all season long and say, finally, we're not going to go there where it's icy on the tundra, because the last time we saw some snow in Green Bay and a team coming from, southern-like conditions of Tennessee, they got whopped in that game, and that was the Tennessee Titans coming to town and say, hey, Green Bay's built for this. So at least you're going to get some decent weather conditions there. Baltimore and Buffalo, this is the most intriguing one of the weekend. Why is that? Because we're opening up around that 33, 34 degrees, which is normal for Buffalo this time of the year, and probably, as I joke around, a little bit warm. But as the game goes on later in the night, we're talking about mid-teens, 16, 17, 18-mile-an-hour winds, but also the threat, Kyle, in the second half, some snowy conditions, which you bring up a good point, where Lamar Jackson, Southern boys from Florida, hey, look, I'm fast, I'm built for this. I don't pass as well as I run, but most of those kids from the South do not like to play in snowy conditions. And the one thing we do know, Josh Allen, he went to Wyoming. He's used to those cold conditions and has a howitzer arm. Kansas City, Kyle, when we take a look at those weather conditions here currently, look, we opened up the week around like 5-6 mile an hour winds, but now we're seeing it 13, 12s in that range, a total game temperature, maybe around 38 to 39 to start there. And then, of course, we're not going to go over any weather conditions there for New Orleans since it's a dome. But of those 3 games, let's have some fun and talk maybe some impact, because it's not heavy winds. It's not 20 to 25 mile an hour winds. It's not going to be a lot of rainy conditions. But if we're taking a look at who it might affect in those conditions, I don't see it hampering the road teams as much as maybe, hey, as I said, the Rams come in and it's snowy, slippery conditions, and we all know Jared Goff can't maneuver in the pocket as is with a broken thumb. But who do you think it helps here? Because to me, I think the road teams are getting helped out by not those extreme conditions here.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like the Cleveland-Kansas City one, for example, if that wind starts to creep a little higher, does that benefit the Chiefs more or the Browns more? I think you could argue that it benefits the Browns more, making a more run-heavy offense. The problem is I don't know if there is a wind condition that can stop Patrick Mahomes from throwing the ball wherever he wants to throw it. So it's kind of an interesting dichotomy there, where it should help Cleveland a little bit, but we've also seen, again, like I said, if it gets to where it's starting to really affect the pass, we've seen that offense operate in those conditions, and it didn't look pretty. Those 2 weeks in a row, it was against the Raiders, and for some reason the other game it's separated from my brain because I'm getting old. But that's interesting. The Buffalo-Baltimore one is another one, right? Because you think, okay, if this is going to be windy and snowy and it's going to force these teams to run the football more, you would think that would favor the Baltimore Ravens. That's what they're built for. They're the best running team in the league. They have the best running quarterback in the league. They have, 2 running backs right now, maybe 3, who can get after it on the ground. And Buffalo's not a great running team. But then you touched on it. Okay, Lamar Jackson doesn't want to play in the snow. He's not great throwing the football anyway, so that's going to pretty much eliminate the passing game completely. So Buffalo will be able to crowd the line of scrimmage, much like they did against the Colts, and hold that running game in check. And Josh Allen is the kind of guy that is built for those conditions. So he can operate in those conditions. So it's really, really interesting. There's a lot of give and take there with those two. And then the Rams, of course, not having the snow, it looking like it's going to be for Lambeau in January, a really nice day. That is a big, big boost to the Rams. And I'm telling you, the Rams are live dogs this week. I know everyone thinks I'm crazy, and I know Jared Goff stinks. That defense is going to give Green Bay problems this week.
It should there. And again, I think that probably like the weather conditions, the one that'll be the most intriguing is that Buffalo and Baltimore game, because when those weather conditions pick up, look, both quarterbacks do have strong arms, but when we're taking a look at who can actually cut it through those windy conditions and snow, it's by far Josh Allen. I mean, roll out of the pocket, flick of the wrist, it's 50 yards downfield. That'll be something interesting to watch, because if you're taking a look at maybe that Buffalo, defensive mindset where it's just keep this kid in the pocket being Lamar Jackson, that could really help them out, because we saw it last week. Hey, I love Lamar Jackson. He's a great kid. He's a good NFL quarterback, doesn't throw it all that well. But when you saw that first pass last week, that just air-mailed 45-yard balloon that got intercepted, you can't hope much in saying this game like, hey, who's to say that that's not going to happen again? The one guy that's going to be able to cut through the wind and throw rockets out here would be Josh Allen in that game. It's interesting that the 49s up to 50s to 49.5s, if you're going to get impacted, and particularly it's one of those things we talk about, where you're going to try to find the added advantage in these games. If you're looking for an over, do you want to mess with the second half snow and the snow showers? Or you just want to say, you know what, that clean half of football, let me try to get in and get out, because in the fourth quarter, if we get 16, 17, 18 mile-an-hour winds, throwing some snow showers, it's going to put a little bit of a damper on the gameplay itself. So something that you also want to keep in mind as well. Cleveland and Kansas City, I don't think that's going to worry about all that much, because you're still taking a look at some slightly windy conditions. But I always say, Kyle, it's not a high school field. It's not just,
right.
Kids standing in a cornfield that's unblocked from all angles and the wind just blows across the field. That's not the case. You're still playing in NFL stadiums where even in Buffalo, you're sunken down into the ground. So how effective will those windy conditions be? We'll see how it turns out, but something to certainly keep an eye on. What the good thing about that is, Kyle? We'll be here Saturday and Sunday. We're going to be able to update that bad boy live and say, you know what? We expected snow, not going to have snow. Or, hey, Kyle, supposed to snow in the second half. That's been updated. Looks like we might get snow within the first half of these games. So make sure you tune in here to sportsbookreview.com for the closing lines of both Saturday and Sunday this weekend. Injury reports, some key information to bring up here. Let's start with the Rams and the Green Bay Packers game. The one thing that you want to keep an eye out for is who's going to be playing left tackle for the Green Bay Packers, because I know, Kyle, the one way to get to Brett Favre, how about that? The one way to get to Aaron Rodgers. Hey, Green Bay is Green Bay, man. One way to get to Aaron Rodgers, put pressure on him. We saw the most effective team this year do that. Who was it? Tampa Bay got after him. Looked like he didn't want any more after the first quarter, when I believe they had a 10-0 lead in that game. If you can get pressure on Aaron Rodgers, you can have a chance. But the thing I'm interested in here is Jared Goff is going to be the quarterback. He's practicing this week. He didn't get any screws taken out of his thumb. They're still there. It's going to be cooler conditions than what he saw in Seattle. We'll see if Cooper Kupp is effective. We saw him leave the football game last week with a knee contusion. We'll see how up-to-date he is in this one. But also, Cam Akers, a few weeks now off of that high ankle sprain. He looked great last week. No injuries coming out of that football game, so he will be toting the rock for this one. But some interesting stuff to look out for, because Walford is out. Goff is definitely in here, Kyle.
Yep, Goff is going to be in, and maybe that's contributed to the slight buyback on the Rams that you see on the books. I don't know why it would. I would assume that's the weather, because you don't know what version of Jared Goff you're going to get. And also critical is Aaron Donald. Look, it looks like it's not a broken rib, maybe some torn cartilage, but he says he feels great. They're being cautious with him in practice, holding him back. But with Aaron Donald back there in the middle, and you just talked about it, their plans in Green Bay were to sign Valdir off of the practice squad from the Colts. He was going to be the first player ever, right, to play 2 weeks in a row for two different teams in the postseason, to replace the injured David Bakhtiari, which is a huge injury up front, especially when you have a team like the Rams who can get after you off the edge with Leonard Floyd, of course, Morgan Fox, and Aaron Donald up the middle. So that is going to be something really interesting to watch. But for the most part, it looks like both of these teams, as long as Cooper Kupp is able to go, it looks like both these teams are going to be relatively healthy. And the biggest news, no repercussions, no lingering soreness or injuries for Cam Akers. That's going to be their recipe for success. Defense and run the ball on this weak Green Bay front seven.
Yeah, the kid. It's a shame for the Rams because I think you're coming in. Obviously, the hardest thing to do in the NFL, in my opinion, is beat a really good football team on rest and at home, which is what Green Bay is going to be in that game. We're going to break down that game in just a few moments. But the Aaron Donald injury, and I know he's not practicing. He says he's healthy. He's going to be fine to play. It's a shame because any one of us who watched that game versus Seattle last week, he was like, if you just said, hey, if you never watched Aaron Donald play before and you got to explain, like, this guy's so dominant, he can rush the passer. A lot of times the defensive lineman gets lost in the equation of the game. Maybe he doesn't get a sack and gets pressures, but to the naked eye, you don't know who that guy is. If you watched last week and just told somebody, just watch this Aaron Donald guy. He was a one-man wrecking ball and destroyed Seattle's offense. That's how you beat this Green Bay team because quarterbacks by and far will tell you it's not the two fast guys off the edge that bother me. It's the guy that beats his man off the line at guard, and the guard and the center are in my face, and I can't step up to make a throw. That's going to be key in this one. I hope just for, competitive sake. I don't care if you have Green Bay or the Rams, but just from a fan perspective, I really want him to be healthy for this football game. He's saying all the right things, but we do know, hey, you could get in there in some cold weather, Kyle, in the first quarter, like, man, this ain't working out, or strained it again, and Aaron Donald is doubtful for the rest of the game. That's a huge blow in that one. Buffalo and Baltimore, usual suspects here. Stephon Diggs still battling the oblique injury. We still have Cole Beasley in the slot battling some knee injury problems. Zach Moss is now down for the entire playoffs, which is a really main swing here, Kyle. Because when we take a look, Baltimore is now healthy on defense. We know what their front seven brings to the table. They play bully ball. You're not running on us. Josh Allen is going to have to spread it out with Brian Daboll and say, I need to go at this healthy secondary 5 wide and see if I can get after it, which usually is good for the over because we know, Kyle, Buffalo's not lining up and going, let's see if we can run the football today. That's not going to be the case. You want to get Singletary out in space, but injury situations at Baltimore looking better than what it is actually here for the Buffalo Bills coming into this game.
Yeah, it is. And the key thing is you're seeing full or limited practices out of Williams and Campbell. That's what you really want. You want that pressure up the middle. A couple of guys, Matthew Judon, illness, that always gives me a little bit of pause, and he's sort of important in that linebacking core for Baltimore. Marcus Peters always misses practice, and I think if you're Buffalo, even though Marcus Peters is a big play guy, you wouldn't mind him being on the field because not only is he a big play guy for the defense, he oftentimes gives up big plays for the offense because he takes a ton of chances. You just go back and watch the tape on Marcus Peters, rewatch the game. Every time Baltimore gives up a big play, you can almost count on it being Marcus Peters involved in the play because he took a risk. So, but other than that, you're right. The injury situation right now certainly favors Baltimore. Cole Beasley looked okay last week in the snaps that he played. I was kind of surprised to see him on the field as much as I did. Stephon Diggs has been dealing with that for a few weeks. He's going to be fine. It's going to be a lot of fun. I always find it funny when a kicker misses practice because of a hand injury. Like, what the hell does that matter? Why did Tyler Bass have to miss practice because of a hand injury? I hate kickers so much. I just had to throw that in there. Such a ridiculous just missed practice. But yeah, so far, both teams relatively healthy. Advantage Baltimore so far.
Yeah, it's a good one here. And I like when both teams come in, healthy into the equation, so there's no excuses on the way out the door. It'll be interesting to see how it does play out. But Baltimore, from that defense we saw just a couple weeks ago in Cleveland, COVID and injured, getting shredded. Not the case, as they were sensational last week against the Tennessee Titans. So we'll see if that's going to carry over in this football game. Now let's flip it over and go to 305, 306 and talk about some injury conditions here in the Cleveland-Kansas City game. When we take a look at this one, quarterbacks are going to be fine in this one. We saw a nice offensive performance by the Cleveland Browns last week, but keep in mind, again, they're probably not going to win the turnover battle 5-0 over Kansas City. So you're going to have to go 65 to 70 yards each drive to probably try to punch in scores, which they should be able to do. But, Kansas City rested and ready. Andy Reid off a bye. But let's take a look at injuries here. The big ones for Cleveland here, Joel Bitonio, the left guard, one of the better guards in football, still not cleared for COVID. He's supposed to be cleared by the end of the week, but as we said, the end of the week, Kyle, it's already Thursday. He hasn't practiced in a week and a half. They hope to get him back tomorrow, get him through a walkthrough and be able to participate, which they're anticipating, again, doing so. Denzel Ward also back. Johnson, the cornerback, also. I mean, he's not very good as well, but Denzel Ward's the key indicator in the back that he's going to be back. So maybe he can slow down somebody. But the injuries that I want to worry about here, left tackle Jack Conklin, who, if you watch the game against Pittsburgh, and for a lineman, hamstring is always a bad injury. But the one where you can hide it is usually called like maybe center or guard. It's hard to do it at left tackle because they're the skill position of the line. So if you're, asked to pull, if you're asked to obviously take 40 to 50 dropbacks here in pass protection, that could give way, and you don't have that bounce and spring where you can make moves, and you could be overpowered. people that never had a bad hamstring injury. I've had bad hamstring injuries. It's awful because it feels like it's coming back to normal and at any moment could just give out again. That's a huge injury to watch out for. Looking at Kansas City from their perspective, Tyreek Hill in practice, out of practice, more of precautionary issues. But again, speed guy, colder conditions, always worried about his hamstring. That could come into play as well. The one guy I don't anticipate, and I think it's going to be one of those things, Kyle, where we hear like Clyde Edwards-Helaire is back. Ooh, good. Speed guy back. He had a devastating leg injury, which he should be able to come back. But as a speed guy, built on speed, quickness, jump cuts, in and out of breaks, a terrible high ankle sprain, he's not going to come back and be like, hey, that's Clyde Edwards-Helaire of game one this year. So it's going to be heavily on Le'Veon Bell in this game. That's a little less explosiveness from the offense of Kansas City. But everywhere else, Mitchell Schwartz not going to come back for this game. They were hoping he would be back at left tackle. He hasn't played, I don't think, since week 6. So it's not like it's, hey, we missed him mid-game and he's been a rock for us all year. It hasn't been that way. But Andy Reid should be able to cover up these injuries. Not massive, massive injuries in this one.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the Jack Conklin one is probably the biggest injury just because when you're Cleveland, you already know this is an uphill battle. You're playing the best team in the league. Mm-hmm. You're playing them in Kansas City. You know you need to run the ball and control the clock, and you've got to do something to score points. You want everything to be perfect up front, especially if you're going to rely on the run and you hope for some efficiency on third down. You keep things in third and medium, third and short for Baker. You want everything perfect up front. So the Jack Conklin one is probably the biggest injury of significance. Reading the reports, it looks like Helaire's running around pretty effectively. Now, of course, that's coach speak, and you can't trust Andy Reid at all with any of this stuff. We all know that. We've known that for years. One guy, I guess, could sort of cause, if he ends up missing is Sammy Watkins, but they're pretty used to not playing with Sammy Watkins. The guy is hurt. He's him and Julio Jones. I don't know who's injured more between the two of them. Honest to God, I think Julio Jones is actually a more durable guy than Sammy Watkins. He didn't practice yesterday. I haven't gotten today's report yet for the Chiefs. But other than that, not a whole lot of consequence here. I think you're right. Edwards-Helaire on the Chiefs side. Will that force, the Chiefs to maybe throw the ball more than they normally would? I don't think they have a problem with that in Kansas City. And then Jack Conklin, to me, probably the most injury of significance on the entire slate. Jack Conklin out there at tackle for the Browns.
Yeah, big one to cover that 10.5 point line out here. So, take a look at Tampa Bay, New Orleans coming in, some injury information in that one. Not a huge injury game, which is great. So you're going to get a pretty clean cap. Mike Evans, we read out last week how effective. It looks like he's fine. Maybe Chris Godwin should be on the injury report for injury of drops, which we had quite consistently in that Washington football game the previous week before. Ronald Jones trying to get that thigh worked out here as he heads in. Leonard Fournette should be a capable backup in that one. From the New Orleans perspective here, we'll see if they get Trey Hendrickson back, the sack leader on that football team. That's a big one here because you want to pressure Tom Brady and get him certainly off the number. But overall, not massive issues of injuries that you really have to worry about, like, oh my goodness, this is a game-breaking type of player that's not going to play in this one.
Yeah, maybe Latavius Murray, right? When they want to go to that power game and in the red zone. Yeah. But I think if you're a Saints fan, and they told you, listen, Latavius Murray's not going to be able to go, so you're just going to get more Alvin Kamara, I would say sign me up for that because I'd rather have Alvin Kamara on the field. The time is over to hold him back and go 50-50 and save him for the playoffs. It's win or go home time. The Saints need this game. Let's not make any mistake about it. Drew Brees' playoff record is abysmal. There's a lot of, what is he, 9-8 in his career in the playoffs? How is it possible that Tom Brady has more wins against NFC playoff teams, than Drew Brees does when Brees? This is a big game for them at home, which I like the Saints in. So the more Alvin Kamara, the better, in my opinion. But I guess that would be the one. And if for some reason Taysom Hill is unable to go, sort of give him that Swiss Army knife. Again, if you ask a Saints fan, will you be upset about that? Maybe on some short yardage situations, you'd like to have Taysom Hill there. But I know when I'm rooting for the Saints or betting the Saints, nothing pisses me off more than watching Taysom Hill run onto the field in the red zone and Drew Brees run off. So you're right. I think the biggest injury here, Trey Hendrickson, if he's a full go, their sack leader, putting pressure on Tom Brady is the key. We know that's the key. That's been the key for years and years and years. So Trey Hendrickson is someone to watch in this game for sure.
Yeah, they beat the hell out of the Bears without him last weekend, but obviously you're going to need a much better performance out of your defensive line, even though they only gave up 9 questionable 10 points if they were going to kick the extra point last week. But you need all hands on deck to try to stop that potent offense for Tampa Bay. Some news just coming out as we're watching now. Aaron Donald has actually been removed from the divisional round injury report. So that just shows he's full practice, and he should have no issues whatsoever in the game. But also Cooper Kupp now listed as questionable for the game, dealing with knee inflammation. And again, you're not playing, and it's nice when you have like bumps and bruises to play in 80-degree weather, stuff like that. That's not going to be the case in Green Bay this weekend. We'll see how much he's limited in that football game overall. So weather conditions, injury conditions, check. Let's take a look now at some predictions here, because in just a few moments, we're going to start capping each one of these 4 games. But when I look and I say, the most fun that we can have, and say, we'll try to spin that crystal ball, like what would shock you this weekend? And it starts for me, Kyle, in the 4:35 game, the Rams and the Green Bay Packers. You know what would shock me? If Jared Goff really plays well. And it's quite like he makes a lot of money. He should play well. This is a really good offensive line with a good set of wide receivers and an explosive running back. He should play well against the Green Bay Packers. But every week when I try to bet the Rams and look at it, it's me trying to convince myself that Jared Goff can throw this team the victory. And I don't mean 375 yards and 4 touchdowns, Kyle. I mean in a 10-10 game, 7-play drive, he's 5 of 5 for 50 yards in a touchdown pass in a crucial moment. I don't think he can give that to me. So my surprise of the week is if Jared Goff plays a really good football game, because I don't think he can.
There you go. I actually don't disagree with that all the way. I mean, you just can't trust Jared Goff. Again, he's going to be the guy that's either going to be a crappy congressman that everyone hates when he's done with his career, or he's going to be buying those car dealerships and you're going to see Jared Goff selling cars. That is going to be Jared Goff's future.
Ford.
Jared Goff Ford. There you go. It's going to happen. Jimmy Johnson Chevrolet. It's going to be Jared Goff. I feel it in my bones. Honestly, outside of what would really shock me is if the officials do a great job and we're not talking about a poor officiating call ruining a cap or ruining a game. I will be really surprised if Cleveland scares the brakes out of Kansas City. I know Kansas City doesn't cover the spread, but I just think this is where the wheels finally fall off. I think Kansas City comes out and puts a beating on Cleveland. It's probably, I was nervous about taking Kansas City to cover the spread earlier, and we're going to cap this game, but I'll be really surprised if Cleveland ends up in the AFC Championship game, and I'll be pretty depressed as well.
Like I'm telling you, like last week watching the game with the Rams, they won, my bet covered, like everything was good, and it covered easily by the half. But I tell you, when Wofford went down in that game and Jared Goff came in, I believe the first snap he took might have been a handoff, the second one he got sacked, and then the next drive he threw like 2 incomplete passes that weren't even close. And I'll say, like, I almost needed, and I joked about the other day, a cigarette, even though I don't smoke. Like, I can't deal with this guy. Like, this guy's supposed to lead me to victory. Now you don't even have the chance of Wofford coming. Not to say Wofford was going to go into Green Bay, Kyle, and go, 21 to 23 for 280 yards and 3 scores. But I just love the fact that he could get in and out of the pocket when where Jared Goff is going to stand each and every time, and he's not all that effective throwing the football. And now you throw 3 screws in his thumb in a colder environment. Good luck to see if the Rams can actually do something. He's really going to lean on that defense here. So, having said that, it's a great way to segue in. Now we can start taking a look at this game on the whole, and that's 301-302. The Los Angeles Rams invade Lambeau Field. Jared Goff will get the start over John Wolford, and we take a look there. Aaron Rodgers, of course, will get the start for the Green Bay Packers. 6 out of every 10 tickets here coming in at SBRodds.com on the Green Bay Packers. We opened it up at 7. Now we're sitting at 6.5 across the board. The over-under at 46.5 down to 45.5, which is a low number, but I agree with that line movement, because when I try to find and break down the game of the way I think it's going to go, I think it was a mirage that 30 points were landed on the board last week for the Los Angeles Rams. I don't think that's going to be the case in this one, and I do think you can run the football against the Green Bay Packers with that really good offensive line for the Rams. They're going to try the same things that they did with Wofford, and hopefully Jared Goff still in midseason form, where they're going to roll him out of the pocket to the right and left. We'll see if Cooper Kupp is going to be as active as we anticipate him being, because, hey, if an NFL guy is in the game, you expect him to be close to 100% and be effective. He's going to play in this game. He's not going to sit this out. But that's where it comes down to for me, because I know how devastatingly good that Rams defense can be. That front line can get after you, some athletic running backs. You have 3 cornerbacks that can match up just about against anybody. And if there's one cornerback in the NFL where I say, Kyle, like, look, I got to stop Devontae Adams, it's Jalen. Jalen Ramsey is the guy to do it. So they fit like a glove. It's the same way we say, like, hey, this team can stop Seattle. Isn't it amazing, Kyle? We talk about the Rams defense as if you draw up the perfect defense in the NFL to stop another team. Hell yeah, it's that Rams defense. But I just don't see the Rams defense dominating and saying, hey, Jared Goff, make enough plays for us to win. I think Aaron Rodgers having one of those once-in-a-lifetime seasons, which seems like he can put together quite a bit. I just see him beating that defense there in Green Bay and me being angry at Jared Goff because he can't make enough plays to get my cover here.
Yeah, you're probably going to be right, and I'm probably going to be one of those suckers that takes a chance on Jared Goff because when I look at the Packers
Like, don't
offense,
you want to root for him though, Kyle? Like, I don't want to cut you off. Like, I want to root for the Rams in this game. I don't like Green Bay one bit. I want to cheer the defense on. I want to see him stop Aaron Rodgers. But then again, it's like you still have to play offensive football. Go ahead, man.
You're exactly right. But the one strength of the Rams offense, it's not Jared Goff and those receivers, even though he's got terrific receivers. It's that running game, and that's the weakness of the Green Bay defense. Make no mistake about it. They cannot stop the run. If the Rams are able to run the football this game, I like the under in this game. I actually do think when you watch the games where Green Bay's offense struggles, the recipe is very clear. Either Devontae Adams is out or he was stopped. And if you stop Devontae Adams, the Packers have nowhere to go. Yes, Aaron Jones is a decent running back out of the backfield. They don't use him nearly enough, and they could get him involved in the passing game as well. But if you shut down Devontae Adams and rush Aaron Rodgers, you can make that offense look very, very pedestrian. And we've seen it when they struggled this year and even last year. Jalen Ramsey can absolutely stay with Devontae Adams. And the other thing is they don't have to focus that much on the tertiary targets here in Valdez-Scantling and Allen Lazard because they're at best practice squad players on other teams. I'm sorry, there's just isn't a lot of great talent on that Packers offensive side of the ball. So even if Adams is giving Ramsey more than he can handle and he starts getting into a rhythm and they bracket some coverage there, it's going to be a long day for Aaron Rodgers. Do I think the Packers win a close game? I do, just because, of course, I'm not going to take Jared Goff winning over Aaron Rodgers. What kind of moron would do that? But I think the Rams are live dogs in this game. I think if you look early in this game and Aaron Rodgers is running for his life and Devontae Adams is covered, it's going to be a long day there. That Rams running game starts to take over. I think this is a low-scoring game. The Packers should win, but I've got the Rams covering that spread. I think that number is still too high. If you get even a remotely competent performance out of Jared Goff, they cover the spread, and I think they're a live underdog in this game.
Crazy. Dude makes like $150 million, and we're talking about he needs to have a competent game. He's supposed to be like where he's going to go out there and win a football game for you, but that's just where we sit in these times. And taking a look at that Rams defense, Kyle, obviously we know Aaron Donald, the single best defensive player probably in all football, regardless of position. But look at the cornerbacks here. If we look at like a Pro Football Focus, right? Ramsey, 8th ranked corner in the NFL. Hill, the 18th. Williams, the 4th. You legitimately have 3 top 20 cornerbacks on the same football team going against what I think is the best wide receiver overall in football, Devontae Adams. So when you're talking about the Rams giving you a chance, yes, you win with defense in the playoffs. It's going to come down to Jared Goff in this game. If I'm looking at it here, look, and again, 45.5, it's so low. Like 24-21 barely sneaks under it. And that's nothing in the NFL for two teams to get into the 20-point range to try to go after it. This will be one of those where it'll be interesting in the second half because I do think, Matt LaFleur and that offensive game plan, coming up with some schemes in the first half, they'll probably move the football. But once those plays that you mapped out all week are gone into the second half, that's where we're going to live and, probably live and learn and see if they can move the football down the field. But it comes down to Jared Goff in this one. If we're picking a game here today, it's 6.5. That's the number we're going to deal with. Honestly, Green Bay is going to win this game in my mind. And if they're going to win the game, they're going to win it by a touchdown. That's the way I'm going. I had that similar feeling last week when I looked at, the Ravens game going, I don't understand this. I just think the Ravens are a better football team. I think they win by 7, which actually did winning by 7. I would be really surprised if the Rams went into Green Bay, who is rested, and beat them. I just would be.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they won. I don't think I would be overly surprised if they won. I'd probably pause for a second, go, wow, the Rams actually pulled it out. And, all those people giving me crap during the week on the show, there you go. But I do think this game is close, and it will not shock me if the Rams get ahead in this game with their running game and Aaron Rodgers has to throw them back into it. That secondary is really good. And I'll tell you, one player, you asked this last week, one player, if we say this player had a good game, they won the game. We talk about Aaron Donald and Morgan Fox and Jalen Ramsey and Jared Goff, all the stuff for the Rams. Leonard Floyd off the edge with all these questions at left tackle for the Packers. If you watched that game last week, even when Aaron Donald went out, Leonard Floyd was an absolute beast off the edge for the Rams. If he's able to do that again this week and pressure Aaron Rodgers from the edge, just like what Aaron Donald's doing up front, it's going to be a long, long day for Aaron Rodgers and the Rams. If you see the highlight package in the fourth quarter of all of Leonard Floyd's contributions to the game, you can bet your bottom dollar that the Rams are winning this football game.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see as it pans out and goes. You know what you're actually going to need in this game? I'll call it right now. If the Rams want to win, they need at least one dropped touchdown pass to Valdez-Scantling in this game, which we see can happen in the NFL. So they're going to need some breaks to go their way. You're dealing with Aaron Rodgers fired up. And maybe the best thing possible, Kyle, was that the Green Bay Packers got a week off and Aaron Rodgers got to cool down. He was amazing in that Bears game, was amazing in the Tennessee game. And again, he's probably going to be the MVP of the National Football League this year. That is a tough road to go against. I think they'll move the football. It comes down to Jared Goff. If you trust Jared Goff, you're getting the better defense in the Rams. If you don't trust Jared Goff, then, hey, which you're in my boat here, I can't go with them and say, I definitely think you're going to win and cover this game. But looking at some team totals in this game, because when you're looking at it, there's so many ways to bet games. Like, you can be pissed off at the Rams all you want, but if the Rams get 19 points, you're cashing a ticket and you say, thank you, Jared Goff. But wait, they got beat 45-19. Who cares? You cashed your ticket. So a lot of different ways to look at it where you don't have to get so angry at the final score itself if your team loses, as long as you get that team total. Now, the Green Bay Packers, Kyle, that 27.5 range, that's now down to 26.5. So 27 points cashes it in, but you're going up the hill going against that Rams defense. So we'll see how it plays out here. 303, 304, the night game, Baltimore and Buffalo. Lamar Jackson, fresh off a victory last week. Take a deep breath. Woo! Legacy intact. At least they're not going to clown me all season and tell me I don't deserve another contract in the NFL because I can't win a playoff game. Got the comeback winner in that one. They are coming in hot. The Buffalo Bills coming in hot in this game. Two teams that seemingly have not lost. It feels like in a month and a half combined between both of these teams. Now they're going to line up. You're getting the Bills, and my same thought process in this game has not changed, Kyle, since Tuesday. I think it's a little bit disrespectful for the Buffalo Bills to not at least be a 3-point favorite at home. They've deserved it all year. They've played extremely well. When you take a look at the losses, a Thursday night game on the road against Tennessee, and then the one everybody mostly remembers is that game where they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs at home and a little bit of smog, fog, and some rain. They didn't play all that well. But for the remainder of the matchups and outside the Hail Mary, as we like to say, out in Arizona, they've done the job. But the same thing goes for those Baltimore Ravens, clearing COVID, clearing the injuries. They've been amazing coming down the stretch. Their defense is built to win in the playoffs. Solid secondary, decent pass rush, bully ball. They're not going to let you run it against them. And Buffalo is not one of those physical football teams. The physicality in the backfield came from Moss. He's going to be out. Now you have the slippery guy in Singletary. He even brought in, I think,
TJ
Devontae. Yeah, TJ Yeldon, Devontae, what am I listening to, the guy from the Giants who used to play for Atlanta Falcons? He's on their practice squad.
Devontae Freeman.
There you go, Devontae Freeman. I don't know what skipped my mind there. But who knows if he's going to play. But this is going to be on the back of Jaron Allen going up against that defense for the Baltimore Ravens. My issue here coming into the game is you're going to have to score. Like, even though it's going to be some windy conditions and snow in the second half, these two teams can get after it. You're looking for the explosiveness on the ground because the one way that, to me, you beat the Buffalo Bills is running the football. That is exactly what the Ravens want to come up in this game and do. But if I'm looking overall, strong defensive line, enough cornerbacks to maybe slow down, maybe a little bit of a banged-up Stephon Diggs, a banged-up Cole Beasley, hold Jaron Allen in the pocket. Maybe that pressure starts to build here, but I still think the same wavelength as I had earlier in the week. It's really hard for me to say, you know what, maybe if the Ravens were getting 3.5 or 4 points on the road here, so you know what, I think they can keep it close and maybe win. They have to win the football game. And I think I'm just shortchanging myself, Kyle, saying under 3, why am I not just taking the Buffalo Bills here?
Man, I think this is the toughest game to cap on the entire slate. I really do. I can make a great argument for both teams winning this game. On the Baltimore side, look, Buffalo struggles a little bit against the run. They struggle making tackles. They struggle in the red zone against the run. All three of those things are huge strengths for the Baltimore offense. You flip it to the other side, the Buffalo offense, look, they have the better quarterback. They have the more dynamic offense. Are they going to run the ball much? Probably not. It's going to be the short passing game, and they're really going to rely on Josh Allen to make those big plays. And will Stephon Diggs be able to get separation from the Jimmy Smiths, from the Humphreys when he's in the slot, from Marcus Peters? That's the matchup I'd be most excited about. Now, if you get wind and snow and it sort of takes away those big plays for Buffalo, will they be patient enough to have these 12, 13, 14 play drives? Because that's not really how this offense is built. So right now, I think all signs are pointing. Look, I don't want them to win. I am rooting hard for the Buffalo Bills. But I just think all the signs to me, even with Lamar Jackson's weak comments, and I wish he wouldn't whine like that. And I think that is so weak. Like, get the hell over it. Get out there and play. I've played plenty of snow games. You'll be just fine. And trust me, I'm the biggest wuss you're going to find on the planet. So especially when it comes to the snow, I absolutely hate the snow. But we still get out there and we get it done. But just the strengths of Baltimore, the weather conditions coming into play, it just feels to me like this is going to be a really tough game for Buffalo. Right now, I am leaning Baltimore. But again, you can make a great argument for both teams. You really can. You're not crazy for taking Buffalo. You're not crazy for taking Baltimore. Me personally, I'm leaning the Baltimore side. Just see too many things trending in Baltimore's direction in this game, the running game and the defensive setup, et cetera. So I'm going to lean Baltimore in this one.
You know what's interesting to look at, too, because, again, we're trying not to take the season as a whole, and you want to see how these teams are coming down the stretch into the playoffs, with both football teams are playing extremely well. But when you take a look at the Ravens, once COVID cleared the building in the Jacksonville game, the defense gave up against the Jacksonville Jaguars 62 yards on the ground, 205 in the air. Then they played the Giants 54 yards on the ground, 215 in the air. Then they played Cincinnati, Kyle, 147 on the ground, 48 yards in the air. And that was a 38-3 game where they gave up under 50 yards passing. Then you take a look at Tennessee, who has, a top 5 offense, dominant at every position, 51 yards on the ground, 158 in the air. This is like the Ravens defense that we're accustomed to watching. So, yes, why aren't we just looking at Baltimore saying, hey, Lamar, just don't melt down, make enough plays with your feet. Our defense will hold us in. And who knows if Beasley is healthy? Maybe Beasley exits in the second quarter, that knee flares up. Or maybe Stephon Diggs can't get separation because that oblique muscle is finally really getting to him here. That would leave a really lopsided offense that says, hey, Josh Allen, you're playing at MVP level. You need to carry us through this football game. I think there's more of a backdrop for the Ravens to actually win this than the, looking at the other side with Buffalo. But I just look at that cheap number here and say, I like to look at Buffalo as a whole in the season, saying they come up time and time again and won these football games, and it's a cheap number. We're not asking them like a la Green Bay, 6.5, right? So you can say, hey, Rams can play tough and they might be able to cover. You can't say that with the 2.5. Like, Baltimore's got to win this football. I don't know if it's going to be 31-30, but Baltimore is going to probably have to win this game if they want to cover that line. But I have to tell you, when I keep looking at that last month of defense when they were healthy, they're impressive again.
Yeah, and that's the real thing. And in the chat box here, someone says, last time there was snow and bad weather, Lamar choked against New England. Something really important to remember in that game, that was a ton of rain, and both Brandon Williams and Calais Campbell were out of that game. So New England was just able to run down their throat. That was that was around that COVID and injury time where Baltimore's defense wasn't the same. That is not the defense you're going to see this week. And what they did against Tennessee last week was fantastic. Buffalo's best chance, like you said, spread this team out. Don't let them put 8, 9, 10 guys in the box and blitz the crap out of Josh Allen. You got to spread them out, force them to play some of those backup secondary players, keep those great pass rushers off the field, and let Josh Allen operate in some space. If they're unable to do that, I think Baltimore wins this game. Right now, I'm leaning Baltimore. I agree. The words you used were perfect. The backdrop for Baltimore winning makes a whole lot more sense to me. I can find a whole lot more paths for Baltimore than I can for Buffalo right now. So I'm going to lean the Ravens. But again, you're not crazy for taking Buffalo, and me personally, I'll be rooting for him. I love Sean McDermott, great head coach. They just have a complete team here. That Ryan Johnson says, no Zach Moss means no running game. It doesn't mean no running game. It just means like that 3rd and 2 now. They're not running the football where maybe they hand it off and say we'll get at least 1.5 yards, maybe a first, and if not, we'll try again on 4th down. That is a big injury for them because it does take some of the power away of what they can actually do. But it's going to be fun to see how it plays out. And this is what's great about divisional round week. Like, there's no chumps, man. You're not just getting like, hey, chump team going to blow you off the field. Well, in the next game, Kyle does think that, but I don't really think that's necessarily the case. 305, 306 first game that will kick off on Sunday. And this is a change started last year, which I don't necessarily like. I love it for championship weekend, which is the following week, where you maybe wanted to savor a little bit more, right? You get the big game at 3 o'clock, the big game at 6:40. I don't like the fact they did this on Sunday because I just like that same ebb and flow of that 1 o'clock kickoff on Sunday. That's sacred, but hey, is what it is. We're still going to be watching. Cleveland and Kansas City. Baker Mayfield's going to go in to play Kansas City, fresh off a bye. Basically 2 byes, Kyle. They sat week 17. They sat again last week. Now they're rested and ready and playing at home. We know how good Andy Reid is at game planning with more than 1 week off. I mean, heck, they probably could have game planned for both teams last week, being the Steelers and the Cleveland Browns, and still had more than enough time to switch it over this week once they found out exactly who they were playing. The over-unders we talked about at 50
57s across the board for a playoff game, which how does that translate into the NFL? One drive into the red zone, one stop on 4th and 1, one missed 45-yard field goal, and you're not getting that 57. You need everything to break right. Now, when you take a look at these two offenses, Cleveland's coming in explosive on offense. Back half of the season, they've really got it together. Both running backs healthy. Even the loss of Odell Beckham doesn't seem to matter. Jarvis Landry's been a monster. That offensive line, the best in football, might be a little bit hamstrung this weekend, but they've been putting up points. But every time you look at Kansas City, it's one of those things. It's a 10-point line. It's an amazingly high number. Kansas City doesn't cover. But you tell me out there, people in the chat box, when you watch Kansas City and you're betting on the opposite team, how many times Patrick Mahomes on 3rd and 4 has nothing back there, rolls out to his left and throws a laser across the field for a first down to a seemingly wide open Travis Kelce every single time? It's going to happen. But again, you're getting the 10 points. If I'm looking at Cleveland, which running the football is not really the recipe for success in today's NFL. I can say it all I want to on Blue in the Face. Give Chubb 30 carries. Give Chubb 30 carries. It's hard to do because, the Jerome Bogers of the world throw one flag down and you're 2nd and 20. There goes your drive, and you're not trying to run the football anymore. But their pathway to victory is leaning on that offensive line, running the ball and using play action. I don't think, Kyle, they go into this game, Kevin Stefanski coming back and he says, you know what, Kyle? You know what's perfect in this game? We're going to drop back 55 times and say, you know what? My quarterback's better than you, Patrick Mahomes. That's not the way to victory here. Both of these teams will move the football, but we're not dealing, Kyle, with 47. We're dealing with 57.
Yeah, and if Baker Mayfield throws the ball 55 times, the Browns are going to be losing by 35 points. Let me that's just the bottom line. And I love that you brought up Jerome Boger, because am I the only one who remember the ladies' man with trying to remember
Cavassier, man.
The Cavassier. That is Jerome Boger every time. Holding 15-yard penalty, 1st down. And Cavassier. Oh, I love Jerome Boger every time. But he does call the dumbest holding penalties. I can't stand him in that regard. But look, you're right. Cleveland, their only hope in this game is they're going to have to keep scoring points. So do they necessarily need to run the ball 60 times? No, but they do need to run it successfully on 1st and 2nd down so that when it's 3rd down, it's not 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10. That's not how you're going to beat Kansas City. Now you're playing into their strengths. They can drop some more people back and sort of protect some of the weaknesses in the secondary. Bashad Breeland, very, very good. Charvarius Ward, not so much. Safeties, I know you've got, Honey Badger, and that's all fine and dandy. Not really the same player he was. But it's hard for me. And look, Kansas City does not cover the spread. They just don't seem to cover spreads. They don't put their foot on the neck. And, I'm taking the under in this one, especially as I see the winds pick up a little bit. I'm not sure that Cleveland can keep up with the pace. I do think it's going to force Baker Mayfield into some mistakes and Kansas City get some turnovers in this game. So the bet for me in this game is the under. I will not take the Chiefs as double-digit favorites until they prove to me they can cover a spread and play 4 full quarters. Will they go up by 10 on this game? They sure could. It wouldn't shock me at all if this game is, 28-10 or 21-7, early, midway, 3rd quarter. And then, Cleveland sort of gets a backdoor cover, and you're never really concerned that Kansas City is going to lose the game. It feels like that type of game to me where Kansas City is always in control, but does Kansas City keep the pedal to the metal and try to blow this team out? They haven't really done that this year. 57.5, 57 is just too high for me. Does it have the potential to go over? Sure, but you're right. I mean, that first drive, all it's going to take, a 9-play Kansas City drive where they're hitting Kelce for a 1st down on every 3rd down. They take 6 minutes off the clock. Boom, they kick a field goal. Browns come down, kick another field goal. Your over is dead. I mean, you need everything to go absolutely right. So I took the under 57. If I'm picking a side, I would take the Chiefs to win. I think they're exponentially better than Cleveland, as I've been saying for a while. The Cleveland Browns are frauds. I don't think they're a good football team. They're the one team that does not belong in this round of the playoffs, in my opinion. Sorry, Browns fans. But I just don't trust the Chiefs enough to cover that spread, so I'll take the under 57.
It's interesting, too, because you see the Browns team total here at some outlets, 22.5 minus 125, and say, sign me up for that. Like, how do they not at least get 24 points in this game? It seems too easy to be true. And on the vice versa side, you see the Kansas City Chiefs here like a 34.5 team total, which they should be able to get. But no way, shape, or form will I ever bet a pro football team total at 34.5, because that's a Patrick Mahomes bangs his thumb off a helmet and you don't cover that because that's a ridiculous number. But take a look at the Kansas Kansas City Chiefs down the stretch. Forget about the Chargers game, which they didn't play anybody. But if we date this back about a month to the Denver Broncos game, which they won 22-16, 179 yards on the ground, which is a lot, 151 in the air. Then they played the Miami Dolphins, 80 yards on the ground, 287 in the air, which is, about average. New Orleans Saints, 60 yards on the ground, 225 in the air. And then the Atlanta Falcons, 90 yards on the ground, 277 in the air. So I think always the preconceived notion here, Kyle, the Kansas City defense, they don't stop anybody like they're Jacksonville. They have pretty good coordinators on that team that, again, have a week off to game plan and get ready for a team that just played last week. I'm not going to be surprised if Kansas City plays well on defense, but I would be surprised if they hold Cleveland Browns here, Kyle, under 20 points.
Yeah, under 20, it seems a little bit low. And I see in the chat box the Browns have a better chance of winning than the Rams do. That is way too many mushrooms are cracked today, my friend, because that is absolutely ridiculous. The Rams have a way better chance against the Packers than the Browns do against the Chiefs. But you're right, that 20 is low. And, speaking of team totals, my favorite team total on this whole slate is the Rams, 19.5, honest to God. But I think you're right. The Browns should get over 20. Now, Kansas City as well, believe the stat was in Andy Reid's last 8 games as coach of the Chiefs with a bye week, they haven't scored anything less than 31 points. So then you start talking yourself into that over, right? But I can't do it. I'm not betting a 34.5 team total like you said, and I'm not betting an over 57.5. No, thank you.
Yeah, it's crazy. You talk about that Rams team total. They're sitting at that 19.5. Like I had 18.5 and it won because they got 30 points. And I'm so hesitant to jump back on there because I just, Jared Goff just gets on my nerves. But anyway, some information here on injuries. Jack Conklin is yet to practice this week with the hamstring. It looks like he blew his leg off last week. So if he plays, he's going to be very marginalized, which is a massive loss for the Cleveland Browns in that game. Ronald Jones back at practice for the Buccaneers, and also Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Sammy Watkins both missed practice today. So something to keep an eye on as we go into the weekend. That's why I just talked about Kansas City being less explosive. Can you see Andy Reid dialing up those screen passes with a healthy Clyde Edwards-Helaire in this game? He's not going to be healthy for this one. So we'll see what we get out of Le'Veon Bell. Capable running back, but not Le'Veon Bell of 5 years ago, right? So we're getting a little bit of a downgrade in that instance. Let's keep it moving here. 307, 308. Tampa Bay and New Orleans. Actually, we just hit the Cleveland game, right?
Yeah, we hit it. We hit it.
Tampa Bay and now look, Tampa's going into the Dome. Wiped out in the first 2 games. Tom Brady, hey, rested, ready. We should be able to go. Antonio Brown has been healthy for the season now. Everybody's ingratiated. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, the trio is back at wide receiver. Our running back should be in full play. Sign us up for this. And that low line, 3.5 down to 3, as we talked about here. If we look at the ticket count here at SBRodds.com, 55% of the tickets actually coming in on Tampa Bay, not on the New Orleans Saints, who have pasted them twice in a row. And I think some people look last week at the game with the Chicago Bears, even though they won by double digits, even though the game technically should have been like 21-3, but they scored late. I think people are downgrading the Saints last week for just being a smart football team and going, God damn, Mitch is terrible in this game. We don't have to do anything but run the football, run the clock, and get out of here with a victory, which is exactly what they did. This is an elite defense, the New Orleans Saints, with an elite pass rush and a good secondary. The way you beat really good offenses, don't blitz Tom Brady, rush with 4, collapse the pocket, and laugh at him on the back end, which they did twice already. And even at, 38-3, whatever it was in the pass game on the road against Tampa Bay, I still can't get over that game. I'm still looking at the previous game before that. You're at home in a dome, which is exactly where you want Drew Brees. What am I missing in this game? Why this line dropped from 3.5 down to 3, and even the over/under? Like, do you picture this game, Kyle, as a shootout? I don't. I don't think that's the MO anymore for New Orleans. I think they play really good defense and ball control offense. I like the under in this game, but I also like the New Orleans Saints.
Yep, we are absolutely on the same page. Look, the formula to beat Tom Brady has not changed since he became Tom Brady, and that is, like you said, pass rush with 4. Put pressure on them. And they also have a great secondary. The Jenkins boys playing really, really well. Of course, Marshawn Lattimore. They're probably the second best defense in the league. You could argue Baltimore, I guess, behind the Rams. And when you look at the New Orleans offense, they have everything you need to beat Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, terrific against the run. The best run-stuffing defense in the NFL. However, the quick passing game, they do a lot of zone blitzing. Todd Bowles, I don't even understand why he's being interviewed for head coaching jobs. I saw your Eagles maybe were interested in him. I mean, are you kidding me? Did you see what he did? The Jet were bringing Todd Bowles to be the head coach. This Tampa Bay defense has gotten worse and worse and worse and worse as the season has gone on. The first 8 weeks of the season, we're like, hey, this might be the most complete team in the NFC. They got a nice defense. The offense is rolling. That secondary is terrible. They're banged up. Carlton Davis dealing with the groin. They play a ton of zone. Do you know who loves to tear up the zone? It's Drew Brees. Do you know who is one of the top 5 quarterbacks of all time against the blitz? It's Drew Brees. In fact, in 2019, I know that's a year ago, he was the number 1 rated passer in the league against the blitz. This year, he's still top 6 in the league against the blitz. Those 10 to 15-yard in routes to Michael Thomas are going to be wide open all day long. Alvin Kamara, the short passing game, they're not going to need to run because they'll just throw the little dump offs to Kamara in space. Now, they do have some speed with Devin White, et cetera, in the secondary, but I don't think it's enough. I think that Saints defense puts the kibosh on Tom Brady this week. I like the Saints a lot, and I'm with you. I like the under 52. I don't know if everyone – I can't hear Donnie right now. I don't know if everyone else can hear Donnie.
Can you hear me now? You got me?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, my bad. I'm glad you stopped it because there's some real poignant stuff about to be dropped down here. The Rams and the Kansas City Chiefs, right? You take a look at the double losses that they had, being the Tampa Bay Buccaneers both at home, 27-24 and 27-24. In those two games, the defensive backfield against Kansas City, 456 in the air. The Rams, 376 in the air. But that's not even what I want to focus on because I think we see like, hey, 5 straight victories by Tampa Bay. But sometimes you have to read in who are we beating and how are we beating them. You beat the Minnesota Vikings 26-14. That was the week where they missed 19,000 field goals, but you still got a victory. But Minnesota, again, not a very good football team. The Atlanta Falcons, you beat them 31-27, barely escaped. Not a good football team. You hammered Detroit 47-7. Detroit was basically given up and dead on arrival. You play Atlanta again, not a good football team, but you beat them good, 44-27. And you play Washington last week with Taylor Heineke at quarterback, a disaster football team. But yeah, you still end up winning that game 31-23. You level up again in competition, and I'm not so sure that they're tough enough to win this because that same old adage, it's so hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. I did a show early in the week. That's not actually the case. I believe in this certain instance, when it comes up where you beat a team twice and playing for a third time, you're 66% to beat them once again. So I don't know where that old notion comes up where people just seemingly pick that up. It's so hard to beat a team 3 times. It is not. And I always say the same exact thing from my childhood, from your childhood, from growing up in high school. If you beat up a kid once, don't you want to beat him up again and beat him up again and beat him up again? Why, if you beat up a kid twice, he's going to beat you the third time? When you go to your rival high school in basketball and you beat them twice in the regular season, then you have them matched up in your group conference round, you're scared they're going to beat you? No, you're like, damn, give me that team. Let's beat them for a third time. New Orleans beats them for a third time, Kyle.
Exactly, and I love that. If you beat a kid up twice, third time, that's the Brandon Gillette.
Yeah, why is he going to beat me up
again? Yeah. Brandon Gillette, he'd come on the playground. I've already beat you up twice, dude, and he wanted to do it again. You're like, good Lord, man, I'm just trying to play basketball. All right, I'll kick your ass again, and that's what's going to happen here. The Saints are going to Brandon Gillette, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bucks don't play well against physical defenses, number one. And they don't play well against competent passing games. And whether you think Drew Brees is washed up or not, the fact of the matter is Thomas a week to sort of get back into a rhythm. They have plenty of weapons. Nobody in that Tampa Bay secondary can cover Thomas or Kamara. I like New Orleans a lot this week. It's one of my favorite plays of the week. So I'll be backing the Saints, and I'm with you. I'm going to take the under. This feels like a 28-17 type of game. I don't think Tampa Bay gets over 20 points in this one. I like the under team total for Tampa Bay as well.
Fun stuff there. I do get a kick out of that because the same way, and it's all walks of life. I just beat my boy twice in a row in Madden. Oh my God, I'm not playing you a third time. That's when everybody beats me. What are we talking about here? The best teams win. They're at home. It's not even like the deck is stacked like, hey, you won both of those games in New Orleans, but now you got to come. No. You still got to go to New Orleans and beat this football team. So I'm not buying into any of that stuff. But what a show we had for you today, huh, Kyle? 4 games. Forensic research on all of them. We went over weather, injuries, probabilities, what's going to shock us, and game-by-game breakdown analysis. Now, the best part is because we're ready for these games. We are. But there's still some work to do. You're going to get injury information tonight. You're going to get it on Friday. But you know what's going to happen is like, hey, you guys won't be back till Sunday. What about the Saturday games? Not so fast. We will be back for the closing line on both Saturday and Sunday. Saturday, we will be live at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. And then if we take a look on Sunday, we'll be here at 2 o'clock Eastern time to break it all down to get the updated numbers. And the good part about this as well is now that we only have 2 games per show, we're going to get to many more prop bets, some DFS action, and really take a final look at these games so we can really ring them up the flagpole and help you guys win some money out here. But it's been fun all season long. Divisional round this weekend, championship round the following week. Then we get a nice little break, and then we hit up the Super Bowl. A lot of good things here going on at sportsbookreview.com. Hit that link below, SPRpicks.com/NFL. Only 31 likes right now because I guess we didn't ask for them, so we didn't get any of those, but 250 people currently watching the show. Many, many more will watch on the replay. Please hit that thumbs up. Please hit that like button. We do appreciate it here. It just shows that you like us, and we can continue to do shows right here on sportsbookreview.com. But Kyle, I had fun today, so another one in the books, and we will be back, as I said, on Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern for the closing line as we set up the Rams, Green Bay Packers, and the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills. I'm Donnie Seymour. He's Kyle Purviance. We are sportsbookreview.com, and this was your episode of the NFL Divisional Round. We'll see you on Saturday. Good luck, guys.